Last year, 4,849 Christians were killed for their faith around the world. 3,490 of those deaths happened in one single country. Not North Korea, not Afghanistan, not Iran, Nigeria. And the world's media has a name for what is happening there. They call it farmer-herder conflict. The survivors have a different name for it, and they have been trying to make the world listen for over a decade. Everything in this documentary is drawn from verified data by Open Doors, the International Crisis Group, and documented survivor testimonies. This is not a political video, it is a human one, and it is the most underreported crisis affecting Christians anywhere on earth right now. But before we get into what is actually happening on the ground, you need to understand one thing that completely changes how you see this story. Because the reason this never makes international headlines is not a lack of evidence. The evidence exists. It has existed for years. The reason is something far more uncomfortable. And once you understand it, you will never look at this crisis the same way again. Nigeria is home to nearly 220 million people, almost evenly divided between a predominantly Muslim north and a predominantly Christian south. For generations, that division held. Imperfectly, but it held. Communities traded with each other. Families knew their neighbors. Children grew up alongside people of different faiths without thinking twice about it. That began changing in the 2000s. Armed Fulani herdsmen began moving into Nigeria's Middle Belt, the region where these two worlds have historically met. What followed has been documented by human rights organizations as one of the most sustained campaigns of violence against a civilian population anywhere on earth. Villages burned without warning, churches demolished systematically, families killed on land their grandparents had farmed for generations. Open Doors recorded 3,490 Christian deaths in Nigeria in 2024 alone. That is not a statistic. That is 9 human beings, every single day, for an entire year, in a country the world has largely stopped paying attention to. The Nigerian government has consistently classified these attacks as resource conflicts, disputes over land and water between farmers and herdsmen, with no religious dimension. International media largely accepted that framing, and so the coverage moved on. The attacks did not. For the communities living through it, the pattern has never looked like a resource dispute. The churches are always burned first. The Christian villages are always targeted. The survivors always say the same thing. This is not about farming. This is about erasure. One woman's account makes that impossible to ignore. We will call her Grace. Grace was 34 years old. She lived in a small Christian farming community in Plateau State, one of the most heavily targeted regions in Nigeria's Middle Belt. Her family had farmed that land for 3 generations. She knew every family in the village by name. She knew the sound of the church bell on Sunday morning. She knew what peace felt like. Then, one night at 2 a.m., she awoke to the sound of screaming.
What happened in Grace's village that night is documented by the International Crisis Group and corroborated by multiple independent survivor accounts. Armed men arrived on motorcycles. They moved house by house with a systematic precision that had nothing accidental about it. They burned the church first, then the homes. Grace grabbed her 2 youngest children and escaped through a back window into the darkness of the fields beyond. She was barefoot. She didn't realize until sunrise. Her husband did not make it out. Her oldest son did not make it out. She ran without stopping until dawn broke over the fields. When she finally reached safety, she learned that 38 people from her village had been killed that night. Every single one of them was Christian. The men who attacked them were not local. They had traveled to that village on that night with weapons. That is what Grace has been telling anyone who will listen for 6 years. And for 6 years, almost nobody powerful enough to act has listened.
What Grace did next is the part of this story that the statistics never capture. After losing her husband, after losing her son, after watching everything she had ever known reduced to ash, Grace went back. She rebuilt her home with her own hands. She helped reconstruct the church brick by brick. She planted her fields again in the same soil where her family is buried. A researcher documenting her case asked her why. Why go back to a place that took everything from you? Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "If I leave, they win. My husband is in this soil. My son is in this soil. My grandparents are in this soil. This land has our name on it. I will not let one night of terror write the final chapter of a story that belongs to us." Grace's village is one of hundreds. Open Doors has given Nigeria its maximum violence score for 8 consecutive years. 8 years of maximum violence. In 2018, U.S. President Donald Trump publicly rebuked the Nigerian government over the persecution of Christians, one of the very few moments this crisis broke through to international attention. For the communities living through it, that attention came years too late for thousands of families. But in Grace's rebuilt village, something happens every single Thursday morning that no statistic can fully describe. The church fills. It still has no roof. They are still collecting materials to finish it. But every Thursday, without fail, the community gathers inside those 4 unfinished walls, under open sky, and they stay. Grace lost her husband. She lost her son. She lost her home. She went back anyway and built it again with her own hands. And every Thursday morning, she sits in a church with no roof, in a village the world forgot, in a country producing more Christian martyrs than anywhere else on earth. This has been Edge of Faith. Subscribe, because next Saturday we're going inside a country where 4 million Christians live and almost nobody in the world knows they exist. I'll see you then.